200 healthcare workers rallied against the state mandate that medical professionals should get the H1N1 vaccine. New York is the first state to require vaccines for all healthcare workers. Other states are considering similar action, which brings us to the question, what are your legal rights if your employer forces you to get vaccinated and you don't want to have a vaccine injected into your arm? Janice Dubler, she is an employment attorney with the law firm of Montgomery McCracken. So help me out here. The government can force, for instance, the healthcare workers. That's totally fine. They can say, you get it or you're out, and you have no recourse.
Yes, Glenn, this is part of the government's police power. This is a tough issue because it requires us to balance the privacy interest of the employee with the health interest and the...
But I understand it with the, with a nurse or something like that because, front lines, but you're out, and can another employee, could Fox News do this? Could, Joe's Plumbing do this and require everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. In a case like this where there's a public health issue, a private employer can do that as long as they don't, basically most employees are employees at will. Unless you have an employment contract, you're an employee at will. Your employer can fire you for any reason at all. They could say, I don't like that tie you're wearing or whatever.
And that's fine. And there's no, what is the religion where you don't want to take any, what is that religion where if you have a religious purpose where you say, I don't want any of your medicine?
There are certain exceptions. For example, if somebody has a sincerely held religious belief, or if somebody has some sort of disability that would cause them to have an adverse reaction. For example, some flu vaccines are made with eggs if they have an allergic reaction to eggs.
What happens if, move from employers, what happens if the government comes in and says, yeah, I'm sorry, we're going to, in Massachusetts they have just passed a law where they have the right to come into your home. They have a right to search your premises, I believe. Isn't that right? Search your premises. It's pretty broad power here. And then either quarantine you at a place of their choosing, or you have to get the vaccination. They have a right to do that?
They absolutely do. When the courts look at this, they balance the two competing interests. And when you've got an issue where there's a health crisis and people can really get sick and hurt, they can do it. They balance the privacy interest in the person, the right to privacy in your body and to getting medical treatment.
I think Americans have a problem. This is my problem. Look, it's your choice to get it. We're not talking about, hey, you shouldn't drive fast on the street. We're talking about injecting something into my body. Now, if I don't have a right to my own body, what right do I have?
Well, you don't have to get the vaccine. Your other choice is to go into quarantine if it's one being required by the state.
Sure, that will be pleasant. No, seriously, that'll be.
Or if you've got a job and you're an at-will employee, you've got the right to be terminated. Most employers aren't going to do that. Most employers aren't going to require their whole workforce. It's only the healthcare industry where that happens.
And I understand that. You can't imagine, forcing your employees to get the vaccination unless you are an emergency or you're working with sick people or whatever. I can understand that. Again, I think the idea that, okay, sure, I don't have to get the vaccine, but does the government have any responsibility on how they're taking care of me when I'm in that quarantine zone?
Think about this, Glenn. When you send your children to school, they make them have certain vaccines or they can't go to school. The only exception to that is if you have a sincerely held religious belief.
There's a difference, though, between that and then being sent off to some quarantine zone. Do you have any right? How do you know when that's up? Do we know any of that? Has this ever been done?
I think this is pretty untested. We've had different things over the years where the government has attempted to put certain groups of people into certain places and it's gotten them into big trouble.
Yeah. It usually doesn't work out real well.
We really don't know how this is going to work or what's going to happen.
Okay.
But, what we know is that if your employer comes to you and tells you you have to do it, you need to think long and hard if you want to file the test lawsuit or if you want to keep your job and do it.
All right, thank you very much. Now next, technology and the flu. Who do you trust?